to another episode of the Idaho Bells. I look kind of bad right now just because I got done camping in Rigby, Idaho at somebody's lot. So it was dirty, gross, and I just pulled my hair up. So that's kind of my disclaimer, but it's fine. I also got to ride a horse today, actually.
So, you did?
Yeah.
Which
I did all sorts of Idaho things.
Was it my horse?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, you rode my
horse.
It was fun. Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. But this episode's going to be kind of fun because we have a lot of different parts. And one of them is what's going on right now. It's on CNN and Fox and everything is the Bowe Bergdahl story.
Right.
And what's kind of interesting is I've actually been talking about this with even people at work because of the movie Homeland, which is a Showtime series that my husband actually watches. I've seen a couple of the episodes, but I haven't seen it from start to where it is now.
Right.
And it's a really intense show, kind of about the same sort of situation where a man, was with, I don't know which division he was in, but he was like with the army. He was taken as a prisoner of war. He was beaten. He was, taken by the
was it
Taliban.
The Taliban?
And then somebody, I think, started kind of helping him after they attacked him so much and just beat him down and almost drowned him and did all the things that they did. They then helped him, and so therefore brainwashed him into thinking what the Americans are doing were wrong, and so it kind of switched the way he thinks. Again, I haven't seen the show. It's just kind of how Michael explained. What I've been told.
Well, there's a lot of questions as to what really happened with the situation with Bowe Bergdahl.
Right.
And 5
years.
5 years.
5 years is a long time.
It is a very long time. And, what really went on, we're hearing things about the fact that he was, or not the fact, but we're hearing things that he's telling people that he was abused, that he was put into solitary in a very, tight, dark box, hearing other things that are going on. And we've got a young man who was actually stationed with Bowe Bergdahl in Afghanistan in the same company. His name is Jonathan Thurman, and the reason that we know him is because I was friends with his parents. And so he was a young man, like in junior high when I first met him. And he spoke to us today about what he saw, his experiences there, being in that same area. He was there when Bowe Bergdahl left and was kidnapped, and he says there's a story to be told about what happened after this all took place. So here's that interview with Jonathan Thurman.
Yeah, at the time of Bergdahl's disappearance, I was a specialist at Blackfoot Company, 3rd Platoon, 1st Battalion, 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment. And I think at the time I was a grenadier. I kind of got shifted around and did a couple of different jobs, but I carried a 203 and we just patrolled eastern Afghanistan, West Paktika province, actually.
Okay. And how many people were involved in that? How big are those companies?
Company is about, I would say, average estimate is about 110 people.
Okay.
Because you've also got attachments. So you might have a mechanic out there with you from a different company or a different battalion. You might have, a couple of intelligence people that are up there gathering radio signals and things like that. So I think at the time of his disappearance, there were probably about 50 people at Mast Outpost where he walked off from.
Okay. And so how well did you know him? Is it one of those things where, you were in the same bunkhouse, or was it something where it was just kind of that's that guy over there? How well did you know him?
He and I, we had a couple of exchanges, nothing too major. I would consider him more as one of those kind of, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I think we probably did 4 or 5 sentences, but I kind of got to know that he was not really the typical infantryman. He was just different. He didn't really, I hate to say this, he was one of those people that didn't really belong in the Army.
Okay.
He could have been he was definitely more fit to do things like backpacking around India or Europe or something like that. So.
Right.
I definitely knew who he was.
Okay. And when, obviously, this was not during a draft situation. You volunteered to go over there. He volunteered to go over there. And so does that make this whole situation even more difficult for you?
It does. I mean, this thing that I think a lot of us are dealing with, not only me personally, but everyone else in my company and our battalion, and probably our brigade, because it was a big brigade operation and a brigade manhunt to go and look for him. Everybody's been dealing with a big sense of betrayal. If you get into the Army, you don't like it, great. You signed a 3-year contract, ride it out. You don't have to stay.
Right.
Just ride it out. Right. Yeah, war really sucks, but it's doable. You'll find a way to make it okay.
Now, you were telling me earlier that there obviously been a lot of news reports and so forth about the fact that he was, rescued and there was this transfer and all this other. But you had said something that stuck with me, that people don't know the chaos that ensued right after he left. Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the morning he disappeared, I was back at FOB Sharana, which is like the big operating base, and we were getting ready as a platoon to go down to Mest, where he was, and take over. We were going to take over. We were going to do 5 or 6 more days, train up the Afghan National Police, and then we were going to roll out. Like, we were going to hand it over to them. And the conditions at Mest were awful. I mean, no bathrooms, no showers, living out of MREs, smoking what cigarettes you've got, drinking hot bottled water, which is probably the worst thing in the world. So he disappeared, and I remember we got called up to the TOC, which is a Tactical Operations Center, on Sharana for 100% recall. Like, our company commander, Captain Silvino, wanted hands on everybody because we had heard somebody had gone missing. So we find out that Bergdahl has walked off, and it was, I would say, probably 15 straight days of looking for him. And it was back to back. I mean, normal missions, you have a pretty high operational tempo. You're in war. You're going to be doing a lot of missions. You might be on like a reverse cycle where you're going out only at night or only during the day. I think that the first 5 days of his disappearance, I got about 6 hours of sleep over 5 days. And it was back to back. Like, we were all over our province.
Right.
And we were, every asset, it seemed like, had been pushed down to us. I mean, we had SEALs coming in. We had, well, what I'm assuming were SEALs, cool guys, if you will. They were coming in, looking for him. I mean, people were coming in and out of Mest that I'd never seen before. And it was just basically a provincial manhunt looking for this kid, following tip after tip on this wild goose chase to get him back.
Right.
And then we get information that, I would say probably within the first 48 hours, it was always, it was a little bit above my level, but within the first 48 hours that he had been walking into this town that was nearby called Yaya Kale, just kind of a notorious, corrupt Taliban stronghold town. I always kind of got that vibe from it. But he had walked in there looking for someone who spoke English to take him to the Taliban. So that's when the betrayal really set in. Right.
And, there really hasn't been much as far as people like you coming out and talking about this until now. And why the lack of communication, I guess, from people? Were you told not to say anything about it just because it was such a high-risk situation?
We absolutely were. We were told we weren't allowed to talk about it, and some people had to sign non-disclosure agreements. And I think it kind of got washed over. I mean, it was definitely a thing, but not a lot of people knew about Bowe Bergdahl outside of the military. And, we always knew. We knew in the back of our mind, and we knew that this day would come. And I think we all had sort of an unspoken pact that when it did come, if it came down to him being revered as a hero, we weren't going to let that happen.
And as far as now, you personally going through all this, are you still feeling this, betrayal, this anger? Or are you feeling like, okay, my part of this, I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm going to move on? Or how are you handling this?
Well, when I first heard, I had just got done with a flight at school, and what was really cool is I had an immediate place to go. I was coming back up to Flagstaff. I was coming to see friends. It was a going away party. We had a whole day planned. So it wasn't until middle of last week when it really kind of hit what was going on.
Right.
And what that did was it resurfaced a lot of the sadness that kind of comes with losing your friends in war. Especially both of my friends, I should say. And I knew all the other guys too. For better or worse. But it was really tough. But the silver lining to the whole thing is that our company and our battalion, I'd say company especially, has really stood up, and we're about planning a reunion, and we've all collectively joined forces to get the truth out there,
right? Because
we think that the American people deserve that.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, how a challenge like this can bring, it can bring you together. Even if it's not a positive thing, it can turn into a positive thing for that reason, and that's good. Yeah,
about 2 years ago, we got vilified pretty hard by a pretty worthless officer in our company to Rolling Stone. Excuse me. And he made us look like we lacked discipline completely. We were out of control. We let our guy walk off. You don't walk off on patrol. You can't.
Right.
You're going on patrol with a whole platoon. You got 30 to 35 dudes all walking with you. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to fall behind. That's not who we are. We're infantrymen. We're there for each other, whether we like it or not.
It's interesting. I'm so glad that we were able to talk to you, because the perspective is exactly what I was hoping for, because we're here, we're in the United States, we're living in Idaho, and we're not over there. We're not feeling the stresses and the pressures and so forth. And to speak to somebody who is there firsthand really does make a difference for us. And let me just tell you how very proud we are to know you, and just the service that you've done. It's funny because I remember you dollar fishing the neighbors.
I was just talking about it. I was just talking about that tonight.
Yeah. So you've come a long way, John.
Thank you.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us. And like I said, just so very honored and proud to know you. Okay, so obviously it was wonderful to just get caught up with him. Very, very intense and stressful situation for him. It just makes you realize what these young men and women go through. It's
it just makes you realize too that a lot of us in the public have absolutely no idea what's going on either way.
Right.
I mean, we have John's perspective, we have what we think is Bowe Bergdahl's family's perspective in our town. I mean, we were doing the news and doing stuff when a lot of this was happening, especially because he's from Idaho and Haley is a small town really close to where we live. And so the POW is really huge here, the organizations. And so they go around and they, are fighting for Bowe. So even my perspective, I kind of feel like I'm blindsided a little bit with this all. Because I was on, oh my gosh, this poor kid. Like,
nobody really knew the true story. And we probably still don't have all of the facts.
Absolutely
I always
not.
looked at it, from a mother's perspective, is that,
Me too. That's exactly how I looked at it.
Your child is gone or whatever, regardless of how old they are, you are worried, obviously, and scared and all that. But it's so... we're so fortunate to be able to have somebody like Jonathan to be able to tell us what goes on. And even outside of this whole situation with Bowe Bergdahl is the fact that these young people are in these situations that, I don't want to be
Absolutely
there.
Not.
I don't want my family to be there. I am so grateful and honored that they have chosen this. And so we really feel fortunate to have Jonathan to to be a friend of ours. So.
It was really awesome actually hearing you talk to him about the Brotherhood and about different things, because I'm actually starting to read a book about the Osama bin Laden thing. It's, you know, an account of, you know, a soldier's account of what happened and how it went down. And at the very beginning, it's all about the Brotherhood and his brothers and what it means and how passionate they are for one another. So after reading that and then hearing him, it's just it's amazing. We live in an amazing country with amazing people fighting for it. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Well, pretty serious edition, I guess, of the Idaho Bells this week. So we promise next week we'll do something goofy and give you a great recipe. All right. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.